Cliff is here because he did what I think many of us want to do. He had an idea for a service that would help people, and he turned it into a company, and it's been a success. So what I'm hoping is Cliff will tell you guys how he did it so that you can go do it yourself.
Okay, good topic. Hey, how's it going, guys? So as Professor Hazeltine said, my name is Cliff. I recently graduated from Brown. I run a startup company called Speechify. And what we do is we make it super easy for people to turn any text into speech. So you can turn case readings for this class, which is something that I did when I was a student, and listen to it. You can scan physical books. You can scan websites, and really anything. I'll go into a little bit more detail into that. My goal in this talk is to illustrate for you guys a clear path how you can go from being a student in this class to, once you graduate, or even before you graduate, have a business that generates income, that supports your life, and that ideally does a lot of good for the world. So my background is, I grew up in Israel. I moved to the United States when I was 13, and I moved from Israel, and I didn't know how to speak English at the time. So I learned, and let me have everybody just close your computers for 1 second for me. Great. So I learned English by listening to Harry Potter audiobooks 22 times in a row. Still have the first chapter memorized. Sadly, lost the British accent. And from that day on, I just listened to a lot of audiobooks. And when I got to Brown, I was interested in starting a business. I didn't know what. And I ended up building about 36 different products when I was an undergrad at Brown. Everything from 3D printed skateboard brakes and longboard brakes to a biotech supplement, a bunch of apps and websites. And I didn't have any experience with computer science going in. I did not study computer science. But it's something that I picked up on the side because I wanted to start building things. And so one of the things I want to cover in this talk is kind of how to identify a problem that you want to solve and then build that. I want to cover how you can build a team of people that can work with you on that. I know that today you guys were talking about business models, so we could talk about business models some more. And most importantly, kind of making the decision between how do you decide if you're going to go and start your own business and be an entrepreneur, or if you're going to go do like a more classic job. So I'm just going to go and just tell stories, because that's usually the most interesting way to learn about things. So when I went to Brown, I started building all these different things. And the first thing that I made was this brake for longboards. And the way I started doing that is I have a friend who rode my longboard, fell, got injured, and I was like, oh, it would be really nice if we had a brake for longboards. And so I Googled brake for longboards. I couldn't find one. I searched Google patents. There were no patents for it. And then I designed a 3D printed model, and I did not know how to design at the time. I had no experience with engineering. So what I did is I went to the lobby of Barris and Hawley. This was the person who fell on my longboard fell during pre-orientation, so classes hadn't even started yet. So I just sat in the lobby, and every person that walked by, I was like, hi, I'm Cliff, what's your name? And then I was like chatting to them, are you studying engineering? What are you learning? And some people were doing stuff that related to mechanical engineering or design, and I was like, I'm trying to build this thing, and I'd show them the sketch of what I wanted to create, and I was like, how would you go about doing that? Like, where are the resources at Brown where I could either learn how to make this or print this? And then a couple of people had enough interest that I started working with them on that. And most of them didn't have enough time to put into the project, but every time I'd ask, who are like the 1 or 2 people that you think would be useful for me to talk to? And usually they give me a phone number or someone's Facebook. And so the 11th person I talked to didn't have time for it, the 12th person didn't have time for it, but the 13th person gave me the phone number of someone who was a dual degree student between Brown and RISD, did mechanical engineering and industrial design, and he and I stayed up one night and just built the first 3D prototype. And then I 3D printed that, and then I presented it in a bunch of different places, started selling it online, and that was the first business that I built. Later on, I wanted to build this iPhone app because my sister had sent me a photo and I wanted to edit it in a specific way, and I still didn't know how to make iPhone apps, so there was a winter break where instead of going home, I found this course on Udemy. Udemy is like YouTube, but helps you learn specific skills. So I took a course on iPhone app development. I locked myself in the Sci-Li, and I just did this course. And so it taught me how to build clones of Instagram and Snapchat and Tinder and things like that. And then I was able to create this app that I wanted to make. When I was about to graduate from Brown, I had a big dilemma, which is I didn't know what I wanted to do, because I had decided that I didn't really want to do a job in consulting or banking. And though a lot of like startup companies like Facebook and Google are interesting places, I was much more interested in building my own thing. And so Professor Hazeltine and Professor Warshay sponsored me to actually stay as a visiting scholar at Brown, which basically meant I got to have a Brown ID card. And that was enough because I was able to still like interact with the students and live here, and rent here is much cheaper than it is most other places in the world, like New York or San Francisco, and continue building stuff. And so I just kept building projects, and I had a thesis in my brain around what type of thing I wanted to create. And the ideal thing would be something that was a clever app or website, because I learned earlier that it just took a ton of time to build medical products and physical products, and something that had a business model that could generate profit not from ads, because I didn't like products that had too many ads in them, and something that created real value in the world. And that was something that was really important to me. So my experience is I'm super dyslexic. It takes me a lot of energy to read stuff. And when I started Brown, I built this text-to-speech tool for my computer that let me read everything from my computer. And then I built a little iPhone app to let me scan physical books, and it let me read that. And I was like, you know, it would be great if this was accessible to other people. And when I was little, like, this didn't exist, and I really needed something like this. And just around the same time, I read this paper about the application of artificial intelligence and deep learning to text-to-speech, where for the first time you could do text-to-speech to the quality of human speech. And so I integrated that into the thing that I created, and I was like, cool, maybe people will use this now. And a couple of years before that, I had made a video showing people how to use a basic text-to-speech tool that I'd made, and I put it on YouTube. And I like put in good keywords, and that thing got about 90,000 views at the time. And I was like, okay, I already have this video, and it kind of validates that people want to use this. That video had about 300 comments of people saying, I'm literally crying, my like fourth grader is doing her homework by herself for the first time. And I was like, okay, so I know that this group of people with dyslexia would use a product like this, but I don't know if they would pay for this. So the next thing that I did is I made a video, just with my iPhone, showing what I was going to create, and I faked as if it already worked really, really well. And I put it up, and I said, this is the thing I'm going to create. And if you want to pre-order it, you can do so. And so I just had a button that you could PayPal me $100 for it. And people started to pre-purchase this. And I was like, sorry, no, it wasn't $100. It was $10. $100 was too much. But people started to send me $10 to make this product for them. And I was like, great. And I didn't say when I was going to release it or anything like that. But people were excited enough by the video to be interested in helping. And so the next thing that I did is I searched for schools for people with dyslexia. And I found that there was a school down the road that helped kids with dyslexia. So I went and talked to the principal. And they were like, yeah, kid, cool idea. And we chatted for a little bit. And they were like, actually, I got to go. I need to write the speech. And I was like, oh, what are you writing the speech for? He's like, well, I'm going to the International Dyslexia Association Conference. And I was like, what is that? Sounds like a place I should go to. And they're like, well, it's 1,000 dyslexia educators that get together every year from all over the world. And they talk about the state of dyslexia and how to improve it. I was like, okay, I'm going to this. Where is this conference? They're like, they're in Florida. And I was like, great, when? Tomorrow. And I was like, oh. So at this point, right, I'm living at Brown. I do not have a job that I'm doing full time. I'd made some savings from my internship over the summer. And I was like, cool, I need to find a way to get to Florida. And I need to get to Florida tomorrow. So I figured out that if you call United, you can book a ticket. So the ticket was really expensive because it was for tomorrow. So I booked a ticket for 3 months from now. And then I convinced United on the phone to give me like a 40% discount on the ticket. So I succeeded, and I did it with points. So I succeeded in booking a ticket for very little points, flew to Florida, did not have a ticket for this conference, which was like $700. So I found all the people who were on the board of this organization and messaged them on LinkedIn and emailed them, and none of them agreed to give me a free ticket. So I booked an Airbnb down the road, Ubered in, and I just sat in the lobby of that conference and hoped somebody would let me in. And eventually somebody came in, and I started talking to them. And they're like, you know, okay, I understand the situation. Here's my badge. I'm just going to tell them I lost mine. So he got a new badge, and I had a badge of someone else's name for the entire conference. But then I started being able to attend the conference. I met more and more people. And at a certain point, there was this big presentation where like all the audience is in front of the stage, and like a main person is presenting on the stage. And I'm like, you know, I already flew all the way out here. Like, I'm getting good responses from the people that I'm talking to. I might as well just do it. So when that person got off the stage, I just jumped on the stage. I put my computer and I plugged it into the thing. He's like, hi, I'm Cliff. I want to show you this thing that I made. And no one really stopped me. So I got to present to this entire conference the thing that I was working on. And so 16 schools offered to fly me out to teach their kids how to use the software that I built after that. And that was kind of the beginning of Speechify. And around the same time, I was struggling to build it on different platforms. So I started building the Mac application, and I started fiddling around with an iPhone application, but I was not that experienced as an engineer. In addition, I was trying to build this like website and a lot of different things. So I just started writing on Facebook, hey, I'm doing this. And it was winter break. And I was like, is anyone free and able to help me? And a couple of people reached out. And in addition to writing on my own personal Facebook page, I wrote on the Brown Facebook pages. I wrote on Hackathon Hackers, which is people who go to hackathons. And I also wrote on Hackathon Hackers Europe. And this guy reached out to me. His name is Simon, from Bulgaria. And he was like, hi, I really like what you've built. And this guy's like, he's 19. He's like just started college. And I had written how I just got on, there's a much bigger story of how I ended up sneaking into the Forbes 30 Under 30 conference, but eventually I ended up on Forbes 30 Under 30 for the project. And I was trying to leverage that media into more media. And so I wrote a post being like, hey, I'm busy working on the product. I'm trying to like do all this press release stuff. Anybody interested in helping? And so this guy reached out and he was like, I'm interested in helping. OK, I submitted the project that you did to like a couple of different news publications. Anything else I could do to help? And I was like, well, I'm trying to build this website. And this guy was studying computer science, like maybe he can help me. So I sent him a sketch of what I wanted to make for the website. I went to sleep, I woke up in the morning, and it was done. And I was like, damn, that was so fast. So then we went through a couple of more iterations. He ended up helping me build another scraper, another Chrome extension. And then we like just stayed in touch. Fast forward, Speechify is doing better and better and better. We now have users, people are paying for it. I moved to San Francisco. I hired senior engineers from Apple and Snapchat and other places. And I'm trying to make this product like really work and scale it to the point where it's like actually impacting a lot of people, not only like thousands of people, but like hundreds of thousands of people. And to do that, you need to build a product that is easy to use. And that was one of the main issues that I ran into. Is for me, using a Mac extension that lets me highlight any text, click a keyboard shortcut, and it reads. It lets me like click another keyboard shortcut, and it increases the speed. It can scan your screen. Like that's very understandable and intuitive. But if you give it to a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old, they don't know how to use keyboard shortcuts. And if you talk to the average person, they don't download Mac applications either. And so I had built this iPhone app that would let you send text from your computer into your phone, and then you can like walk around or work out and listen at the same time to your readings. And that started to become more popular than the Mac application. But I would have never built the iPhone app if I had not first built the Mac application, which was the main thing that I used. And I was like, people don't download Mac apps, but they do download iPhone apps. So I started spending most of my time on an iPhone app, and I started hacking around and building a website too, because people do access websites, and seeing if I could make a website that would be useful enough. So I ended up hiring these people, and then I just saw a drop in how many people we could convert to starting to use the product. And I started to have a feeling, well, maybe this is actually just a niche product. Maybe only people with dyslexia use this, and people who are like dyslexic and also good at technology, maybe this doesn't work. And I couldn't get people to retain, to stick with the product, right? Of every like 100 people who downloaded it, maybe like 2 or 3 would use it like a month later. And I was like, this is not good. And I also was starting to feel a dissidence from the guys who I'd hired from the bigger companies, because I came into every project that I was building with what I called hackathon mentality. All I want to do is build something fast, and it can be scrappy, and it doesn't need to be robust. It just needs to like work somehow, and then you can iterate it over it with time. But the guys who I brought in were like very methodical engineers, and they wanted to like take something and build a robust system. And so often something that I would want to build in like a day or two would take them like a month, because they wanted to build it by the book. But at the same time, I was starting to work with people like Simon and other people who I found online and through hackathons. So we ended up parting ways with the Snapchat and Apple people and going full force on people like Simon, who usually are people who didn't have any experience before. But they have 3 traits that I always look for in people who I work with, which is 1, they're really fast at learning. 2, they have fire in the belly for the product. And 3, they have high loyalty to the team. And essentially, now we ended up building a team of like 25 people who all fit this criteria. And they're distributed all around the world. So some are in California, some are on the East Coast, some are in London, some are in the rest of Europe. And it results in a much, much faster working environment. It's also amazing because you don't have to be constrained to your local place for finding talent. You can have the best people from all over the world. And that makes working, 1, way more fun because you have better people working with you. But 2, more fun because you get the excuse to travel and go all over the place to work with your team, but also work with them online. So those were kind of like the 2 big defining moments in the company. But zooming back to that difficult portion where we couldn't figure out the retention. That was around the time that we parted ways with the Snapchat and Apple developers. And I had a big decision to make. which was, okay, this is like at the height of the like Bitcoin crypto bubble. And this was also like a space that I knew a fair amount about. And I was like, shoot. I can keep working on this thing, which is doing okay, but I'm not seeing it break out. Or I can go do an ICO and like start a new crypto and raise a ton of money, and that'll be really cool. And so I had these two choices in front of me. And it was really difficult to decide which direction to go. And so what I ended up doing is going back to first principles, and that first formula by which I was trying to pick what company to work on. And for me, I'm obsessed with this idea of creating value in the world. So I grew up not really being able to read, and then figured out that I can, through audiobooks, consume a ton of information. It's super fast. One really amazing thing about Speechify as a platform is it coaches you to listen faster. So most people read at 180 words per minute on the computer, and 200 words per minute in a book. I listen at 600 words per minute, so 3 times faster than most people are able to read, even though I read slower than most people. And what we find is most people who come into Speechify, we give them a test to assess your reading speed and reading retention and listening speed and listening retention. They're able to listen a little bit faster than they're able to read. And then we are now working on a beta that basically has a learning module that teaches you how to listen faster over time. And what we find is most people succeed in going up to like 300 to 400 words per minute within the first month, and then after that they can build up to 450, 500 words per minute. And so I end up reading a lot. I go through about 100 books a year in the form of audio. And one of my favorite things I've ever read is this essay by Emerson called On Wealth, where he talks about this idea where humans can apply their thought to matter, rearrange atoms, and you've created value in the world that was not there before. And to me, that's like one of the coolest concepts in the world. If you guys took econ, it's essentially shifting the PPF curve to the right, but you're just doing it by inventing stuff. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that the best technologies that would revolutionize the world the most moving forward is most likely AI. It's also like the easiest to implement right now. When I was at Brown, I did an independent concentration in renewable energy engineering, so that's another field I'm really interested in. And I read a lot and studied neuroscience a lot. So my dream is like later on I want to dive very deep into neuroscience. Renewable energy is awesome, but the hardcore problems, for the most part, have been solved, and then the rest of the things take a long time. And so the most efficient company for me to work on would be a software company, and it should include AI. OK, cool. So that's like part one of this. The second part is I'm really obsessed with this whole listening thing and with voice. And the best feature of deep learning, which is a subcategory of artificial intelligence that at the time was growing the fastest, is its application to voice, so speech to text, text to speech, natural language processing, and just pattern recognition for computer vision. And all 3 of those things are things that we do within Speechify. We take pictures and analyze the text. We reorganize the text with NLP, and then we speak the text to you. And in the future, we'll have a speech-to-text portion as well. And so I actually realized that, no, I'm pretty core to my mission, and this is the thing that I do want to be working on, but there's still this retention issue. And I could see it in my analytics. So I just sat down for a week. And all I did every day was I would call users on the phone. And it was a very weird thing to do, because you feel like a telemarketer person. It's like, why are you calling me? So what I started to do is I would text them before I would call them, and then they'd agree to have a time, and I'd call them. And I'd have like 15 phone calls, 20 phone calls every day. Until I got to the point where I could see that people actually were using this product, and I could see where people fell off. We ended up fixing all that stuff, and ended up where we are today with a product that people actually use, that people retain with, that people pay for, and increase over time. Does this class end at 11:50 or at noon? OK, so I'm going to wrap up here. We have like 2 minutes, so I'll answer any questions that you guys might have in conjunction to the story.